Joining us now, TSN hockey analyst, former Vancouver Canuck, Frankie Corrado. Frankie, how you doing?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
You very well, very well. So tomorrow you get to work with Blake Price.
What a
for
treat.
The first time.
What an honor. I can't wait.
Matt knows the honor.
Oh boy.
Well, so here's my plan. At some point, we try and work this in the broadcast, whether it's Mark Mathot, Craig Button, Carlo Koliakovo. We like to snap the puck around a little bit. So at some point, I would like to work in. We heard Blake Price talk about it during the period.
Yes.
Right? When we come back
it's
to
a
the
nice
studio.
nod. We appreciate it as play-by-play guys. They're like, they see us. It's nice. It's
nice. Yeah.
It's good. Thank you. I'll make sure I put I'll do the same during one of the periods.
Thank you.
As we heard Frankie say there in the intermission.
That's just being a good teammate. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. There you go, hockey fans of British Columbia. Have a drinking game tomorrow for the Cougars and the Giants from the LEC with Blake and Frankie Corrado. But as we've talked about, Frank, there are some first-round draft picks potentially in this game, really on both sides of the ledger. So
we had
perhaps some homework.
So it's funny now because this is like an annual thing, it seems like, because we had Prince George versus Vancouver last year. And I remember kind of doing my research on PG last year, and they were saying there's this kid, Riley Height, who came in as a young kid, and he's eaten so many minutes as a 16-year-old, took on a lot of responsibility, and he's been really impressive. And now it's his draft year, and it's like he's been even more impressive as he's a 5'11", he's really good on faceoffs. I love the way he skates. Like, it seems like he's a really strong skater. He's got like a nice strong base, but there's even like Cone Zimmer. And then on Vancouver's side of thing, it's Samuel Honzik, who was
a beast last time out.
He's a beast.
I wonder if he could have some serious helium near the draft that he rises, because he was an absolute beast last time out.
He kind of reminds me of, like, I was watching some of his clips, and he's going to be a much higher pick. His ceiling is much higher. But when I watched Detroit play, that kid, Dominic Kubalik, who was, I think he was a finalist for the Calder Trophy his first year.
He had a great rookie year. Yeah.
They kind of skate the same way. They have that, like, pretty rangy kind of stick. It seems like it could be like it seems like a fun player to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
And who knows? All three of those guys could be in play for the second Canucks first round pick from the Islanders if
that happens. Yeah.
If it were to fall that way. Frankie, as we talk right now, Luke Schenn is still a Vancouver Canuck, but things have heated up, and we understand there's good interest from the contenders. Boy, when we first saw him here a few years ago, we thought he might be on his way out of the NHL. You know, the big sort of lumbering granite block defenseman, and he's talked about how, working with Adam Oates and changing his game and making sure that he had the skill set to make it in the modern NHL. And he's turned into this hot deadline commodity, not just because of his game, but because of his attitude and his intangibles. A word or two on what you've seen from Luke Schenn.
Well,
because this is quite a remarkable turn of events with his career.
Yeah, it really is. And so you have to give the player a lot of credit, first of all, because I've seen it in the locker room where certain players have this mindset that I got to this level because of this. So maybe I don't want to switch and do things different, and I'm not so receptive to criticism. And it's like, guys will put up the shield and be like, well, this guy never played. What does he know? And sometimes it comes when you get too many voices, right? Too many different opinions, too many voices. And players will be like, you know what, I'm just blocking it all out. I know what I did. I know what I got here with, and I'm good. So when a player is able to, like you talk about, he brings in Adam Oates, he works on what's going to make him more effective in this new age NHL that we're seeing, and you got to give him a lot of credit. And from everything you hear, he's a real stand-up guy. I actually had an encounter with him as like a 15-year-old playing for the Vaughan Kings. So I think it was his first year with the Leafs. And we were playing a game right after the Leafs practice at the Lakeshore, whatever it's called here in Toronto. It was their old practice facility. And I was waiting. I'm like, hey, man, could I get a stick? And sure enough, he popped a stick in my hands. So I still have that, like, Luke Schenn rookie stick at my parents' house in the basement, which I thought is really cool. Like, I've never gotten to tell him that story or anything like that. But listen, when you go from a player who was on waivers, cleared waivers, and now you're a guy who's garnishing interest from, like, legitimate Stanley Cup contenders, and it's not to be a 7-8 guy. Like, if a team's bringing in Luke Schenn, they're bringing him in because he serves a purpose. And that purpose is the fact that he can clear the front of the net. He can stop plays defensively. He's obviously improved a lot with the puck to the point now where you feel like you can have him on for a regular shift and he's not going to cost you. He's not an elite puck mover, but he's definitely serviceable. It's just cool to see a player who was one thing, recognizes where the game was going and said, I need to go more in that direction without giving up what made me the player I am. And so you have to give Luke Schenn a ton of credit in that regard.
How many more years do you think he's got left in him? Because he's been doing this now in the early 30s, and he's not like he's got blazing speed to sort of lean back on here.
Yeah.
He needs to be exactly what he's been. How long can he keep this up?
I don't know. You got to think there's an expiry day, right? And I go back to Ray talking about this. He used to say this all the time. He said 1 year he showed up, his foot speed wasn't there, and he never got it back. And that was it, right? And there was nothing you could do about it. I feel like we've almost seen that here in Toronto with Jake Muzzin, who's, as you guys saw, not going to play anymore this year. He's had the concussion issues. He's had a number of other issues as far as the back and the neck and all that kind of stuff. But it's just like the foot speed wasn't there, and it never really came back around. So I wonder if Luke Schenn hits that point. But he hasn't really shown me that he's at that point yet. Like, I feel like if you put him on a third pair, you know, like you play 11 minutes a night, like that's a great wheelhouse for Luke Schenn. So, I mean, listen, when the age gets up there and the way guys are skating now, I mean, we talk about McDavid all the time, but it's everyone. Like, you know, a guy, even a big guy, like a guy like Alex Tuch in Buffalo, he's one of the fastest guys on the ice and he's a monster. You know, like I think that's the thing that people lose sight of. We see these guys who are the smaller guys with the legs are moving so fast, right? And you think, oh, that guy is flying, right? But it's like these big, strong guys, like they're generating a ton of power and they're flying around the ice. And it's not few and far between. It's a lot of guys. So it'll be interesting to see. But, I mean, with the way he's playing now, it's not spectacular, but it's definitely serviceable and can serve a purpose for your team. I don't know, a couple years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and you know, he's just such a throwback, right? Like leads the league in hits, blocking shots, all the different things that you're finding fewer and fewer players doing out there. So, speaking of foot speed, Brock Boeser, and look, he is still a damn good shooter of the puck. He is still a pretty smart hockey player, understands positioning, and he can help a contender. We're going to see here in the next week if he gets dealt. What have you made of Boeser's game, Frankie? And, you know, how difficult is it for the guy who's just not naturally fleet of foot to continue to keep up in the modern NHL?
Okay, so you guys remember his draft year, of course. Or, sorry, not his draft year, his rookie year. He was unbelievable his rookie year. So I was playing for the Pens, and we came into town, and I think he put up a 3 spot on us. And guys were on the bench. Like, he wasn't an unknown, but he was kind of making a name for himself at that point.
Matt Murray said it was a lucky hat trick, by the way, that one.
I don't think it was a lucky hat trick. I really don't. Like, I kind of think it was like a well-earned hat trick for Brock Boeser because this guy was ripping the puck and he was scoring from distance and there was just a lot of conviction to his game. And when you talk about the foot speed, there's players who don't necessarily fly around the ice. They kind of think their way around the ice. And Brock Boeser certainly is one of those guys, but his shot, of course, like, yeah, we know about his shot. No player, for me anyways, for my money, has had to deal with the kind of off-ice stress and I don't want to say distraction because I know there was a lot of family stuff with his dad. That's heavy. Like, that's heavy for a player to deal with that. And it seemed like it was kind of going for a long, long time. And I kind of wonder, like, if a change of scenery for Brock Boeser, just if it's things like different arena every day, different route to the rink, different everything kind of like helps him get on the other side of that kind of stuff. And just
it's a smelling salt, right? It's a smelling salt.
It's just like, it's just one of those things where it feels like he's been here a lot. There's been a lot that's gone on for him throughout his time in Vancouver. It just feels like, man, if he would be my pick. If he moved on to a different team, I would predict that this guy would have like a big resurgence, because I don't think you just lose it, especially a player like with that kind of capability, that talent, that kind of head for the game, which he has. So I really like Brock Boeser. I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere else. And I think, like, you know, with the tools that he has, I think it's just a mental thing right now. It's just like, he's got to get out of Vancouver. He's got to get like a whole new scenario around him. And I think we could see, you know, the best of Brock Boeser to come.
It's also the cruelty of the cap era too, where, you know, his number feels big, his cap number, and yet in a couple of years, 25 goal scorers will make $6 million a year. Like that will be that will be the price.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know, the cap, the hard cap makes us think differently about players and the contract that they tow behind them. It's not a comment on the player per se, right?
It's like, always a price tag.
Combo.
Yeah, it's always, he's a good player, but he makes X amount. Or how many times do we make arguments that this player makes this amount, so he needs to have this much contribution to his team? It's like, you know, you look at percentage against the cap, it's like, all right, now he needs to have that much percent of an impact on his team, right? Yeah, so, it does make sense. And hopefully with the cap going up, I still, listen, for a guy that scores goals, that's the hardest thing to do in the NHL. So I don't mind paying a little more of a premium for a guy that can actually score goals, and he's a pretty natural goal scorer.
And it's an interesting mix of teams that have been linked to him. You know, teams like Calgary, Minnesota, Washington, who were sort of fighting for the playoffs, but not necessarily in. You wonder if he's got broader appeal between the contenders and even those who are looking forward to next year. The problem, gentlemen, Frankie, you've heard this line before. The contract sucks right now.
Oh,
in terms of having to move them, because the Canucks are gonna have to eat money on this one way or the other. Yeah,
and they should, like, if you're Vancouver right now, don't you think you're okay with eating some money just to move contracts out, move people out? Like you're I don't know, you're not really that tied to anything. It's also a new regime, right? Like we saw it when Gillis left and Jim took over. It was like slowly but surely everyone who was not Jim's guy was like out the door, right? Like whether it was Jensen, it was Gauntz, it was like just take your pick. Everyone was gone. And then that's just the prospects, because I'm a little more familiar with those guys. And we had some conversations on the bus maybe a couple times over some beverages. But, you know. You
knew that was coming, did you? Yes.
Yeah, you could see it looming, hey? But, you know, that's part of kind of cleaning house. So I wouldn't be too tied to, I mean, outside of your handful of players that you EP and Quinn Hughes, like there's going to be some change, and that's part of it, and that's okay. But I mean, it's kind of just to be expected. Every time a new regime comes in, I've seen it with star players who are kind of worried about their status on the team. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you got nothing to worry about, man. Like you're like 500 games in here, and you know you play 20 minutes a night. You should be all right. Like it's probably more for the for the guys who are struggling here and there.
You must marvel at a guy like Andrei Kuzmenko, and a guy that doesn't take the traditional route to the National Hockey League. You know, it's amazing, and you probably, have a bit of a pang here because, I would think as a player you hope that there's a window for the late bloomer, for the guy that gets things together a little bit later than 18 years of age in a draft year sort of thing. But it is amazing that a guy as good as Andrei Kuzmenko was not in North American hockey, really not on North American radar.
Yeah.
Up until this point in his career, and then effortlessly gets into the National Hockey League and looks like he's been here for years.
I love it. I think it's great. And I think there's those are the kind of stories that if you're talking to, kids, adolescents, young adults who play hockey, who are trying to make a name for themselves, maybe it's the 18-year-old who's stuck playing in the BCHL and thinks he should be in the WHL. And you're telling them like, listen, man, it's a long game. Like it really is. Just because you're not there at 18 or 20 or 21 doesn't mean you can't be there at 25. Like it really is. So, I see it all the time here. Like I'll be at the rinks every once in a while. I'll skate, I'll skate like a young defenseman one-on-one. We'll work on some stuff. I like to kind of get on the ice, although I don't do it as much as I should. But, talking to the parents and stuff, it's like, yeah, but he's not here with these guys now. And I'm like, doesn't really matter. Like he's on the ice today. He's going to try and get better. Really, like, you're going to be there's a select few that make an impact in the NHL at 20. Like you're kind of aiming for that 24 to 26 range, so then you can solidify yourself in the NHL, and then that's when you start making your money, because you're not. Well,
you hope that you get recognized. You hope that you can make that impact and get that look right at that point. Yeah.
Yes, but here's, and I've said this to you guys before. If they can find Leo Komarov in Northern Estonia, they can find you in the BCHL. Like, it's just, that's what it always comes down to. And Kuzmenko is another example of that. Guy played the long game, played the marathon, and there he is. He's in the NHL. He's having a great year.
Yeah, as we talked about yesterday, I could take a run here at Bure and the club record for goals for a first-year player, because they don't call him a rookie.
I love that he got lost or something on the way to the rink in Nashville, too. Like,
yes, he put out the APB.
Like, the hotel in Nashville is literally right next to the arena. Like,
yes, it is. Your
hotel room is staring at the media and players' entrance for that arena. It's like, I don't know, send a search warrant if I don't show up.
Hey, speaking of Kuzmenko, have you ever thrown back a banana or a Pepsi on the bench between shifts? Did you see that?
I did see that.
Mid-game snacks. Have you ever had a mid-game snack?
I have. Yeah. I do. Like, if I'm really famished, I'll have like the toast with peanut butter. But we actually
at intermission.
Yeah, yes, at intermission.
Yeah.
Always at intermission. I don't know. I didn't have time to eat on the bench. I was like just too nervous, or just breathing into a bag or something like that. But the year, like the second year we were in Utica, we went to the Calder Cup Finals. We had a 4 overtime game against the Oklahoma City Barons. And we had to eat pizza. Like, we were legitimately eating pizza between periods. And it was like, the last meal we ate would have been around noon, and we were getting into like 11 o'clock, 11:30, at night. So, yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't like fried deep dish or anything like that. At least
no, it was that
bready at least.
It was that really light pizza.
Okay, yeah. Thin crust.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist. Yeah.
I'm guessing good pizza growing up in a house with Big Sal.
Yeah, I know a lot of good food. Good pizza. That was the thing that spoiled me growing up, and maybe we were a little snobby when it came to food, and in these minor hockey tournaments and stuff. Like, there would be a certain group of parents going to one restaurant, some chain restaurant, and we kind of elected to like bring a hot plate and make some pasta and some sauce, nice. Or there was like some kind of like outdoor barbecue situation, and people would kind of give us looks, and we'll just be like, this is normal. Like, I don't know what you're looking at, but this is pretty normal for us, and don't think it was at the time.
The hibachi out the back of the car and out of the like, Days Inn.
The Spadooch barbecue, and everyone's kind of doing the drive-by saying like, hey, can we have one? Like, yeah, sure. Plenty to go around.
Well, tell Sal we could use the best sauce. My supply has run out. Appreciate this, Frankie. Thank you for the time. We'll catch up here soon.
Thanks for having me.